right. Well, welcome to Not Weird, Just Homeschooled. I'm your host, Jeremy Demery, and we have
Kayla.
Kayla. What's your last name?
Sabo.
Sabo. Kayla Paige Sabo?
Kayla Paige Sabo.
I almost said Sabo.
Oh, no. Ugh.
That's why I have
hell for that one.
That's why I think I'm going to continue. I don't know. I think I'm going to continue to have everyone say their own names because even when I'm doing stand up, I am so horrible with names.
Yeah. I mean, somebody could say their name directly to me and it just goes zoop, right over my head.
There's a guy who I've known for a really long time now. I've recorded his podcast. I've actually probably want to record one of the earlier, if not the first one, of his podcast, and I still fucked his name up.
Oh, no. That's awful.
And, or there's another guy, his name Gianmarco Robisi. I've already fucked his name up again. Robisi. I've known him for a couple of years. And when I see him in New York, I will call out his name. John Marco, hello, blah, blah, blah. Calling him on stage, blanked.
What do you say? Jean-Marc Rubisse?
No, I don't say. I just say, yo, this guy.
Here he goes.
Yeah.
You're going to love him. You're going to love him.
He's going to say some words, and you're going to laugh at them. That's how that's going to go. So here's this guy. That's why I don't think they let me host really much anymore.
Classic.
And I sometimes turn in the audience because sometimes I think they deserve more, and when they don't give it to them, I get frustrated. But that's whatever. But yeah. So this podcast is really about so I'm a homeschooled person.
Mm-hmm.
I identified as a homeschooler. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't word it like that. I was homeschooled, and so therefore, I have a lot of social ineptitudes. So I'll say the wrong thing. There's just no filter between my mind and my mouth sometimes. Mm-hmm. Though I've been getting pretty good about it as of lately.
I'm proud.
Thank you. It's quite the accomplishment after 29 years of being alive.
29 years.
A little peek behind the curtain here. When I'm in New York, I'm 29 years old. Mm. When I'm in Cleveland, I'm my age, but...
And what would that be?
I'm 37. Yeah, I'm 37. But in New York, I'm 29.
Of course.
Because, I'm in show business, baby. And they like him young. Comedy is such a young man's game now. Mm. You think of any, popular comic that's, maybe in their 40s?
Not anybody that's doing good.
Yeah, nobody I can think of right now. Yeah, they're usually on the downswing. Yeah. They're performing at the Funny Stop.
Gosh.
I think I call the Funny Stop the meeting grounds of two very different places in comedy. It's where everyone meets. Mm-hmm. The guy who's on the rise, and the guy who's coming down, they all meet at the Funny Stop. So that's where careers go to merge. So funny. They're just... Some of the comics that they have headlining there is or even just some of the guys that they'll throw on shows. It's you don't do any real quality control, do you? You just do, oh, so-and-so showed up. Let's give them 5 minutes. Yeah. But yeah, so I have a lot of social issues, I guess. I'll say inappropriate things, but in my head, it's really not that big of a deal, or I didn't really think anything of it. I'm just kind of rambling, and then I find out later that I offended somebody, and I think that sometimes because I had no one growing up to offend or socially have a lot of experience with other people with, I think that's usually my hangups. And I think a lot of our upbringings influence who we are as adults, mostly in social situations.
Totally.
It doesn't inform everything in your life, and I don't think it necessarily controls what you do or how what you do for a living, who you end up with. But I think socially I think because it's so you're so in the moment and you're not really you're not really necessarily being very self-aware, I guess. Or you feel comfortable enough where you think you're in a safe space and, you know, your wife's friends trying to out you for saying inappropriate things.
We're calling you out.
Like, you know, she has to tell them like I'm an idiot and I'm harmless. I'm completely harmless, but sometimes I'm very dumb. So I think I'm not saying that about you, but like I think that our upbringings, and you and I have hung out before,
Yes,
and you've always shared these like really fun, lighthearted way that you tell a story of some really intense situations that you've had in your past. And I guess, so let's give us a background of where you grew up.
sure. So I'm 26 and I grew up in Youngstown, and my mom. Oh,
Let me interject real quick.
No,
For the
please.
record, I didn't ask her what her age was.
He did not. No, he did not.
See, I'm learning already. You don't ask a lady what her age is.
I know, but I like to say it because I look a lot younger than what I actually am. So.
So do I. That's why I say 29.
Of course.
And
of course.
I don't know. It's a blessing and a curse.
It is. I still get carded everywhere I go.
Nice. Hell yeah. I don't get that, but it'd be nice once in a while. Just saying, bartenders, go out. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So, my mom had me at 16. She was pregnant with me at 15. And
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm just jealous that she lost her virginity so early.
I know. I'm still trying to lose mine.
I was 19. It was a very awkward situation.
Yeah. Well, so was hers.
But we still keep in touch. No, I'm just kidding. That
Oh,
doesn't
God.
happen.
That'd be awful.
That would be weird, right?
Yeah, that'd be
I wonder how many people keep in touch with the person they lost their V card to.
Could you imagine if the person you lost your V card to was like the person you ended up with?
Ugh.
Oh,
That made me
God.
throw up in my mouth a little bit. Not to say that she wasn't a lovely person. She
Sure.
was.
Sure.
I was the problem. And yeah.
I'm always the problem.
Yeah, I'm usually the problem.
Yeah, me too.
And you know, she's a lovely person. I'm sure she's very happy with the life choices of not ending up with me either. That's probably pretty good for her. You know what? She got the better of the deal.
Oh my gosh. You're great.
Ah, shucks. So, Youngstown,
Youngstown.
16-year-old mother.
16-year-old mom.
She's down to clown.
Oh, she was actually a juggalette. So
No, really?
yeah, seriously, yeah, she was always down to clown. Oh, she is. She's alive. She was, but when she was younger, yeah, definitely. She went to a couple gatherings and.
Does
Yeah.
she have the Hatchet Man tattoo?
No, unfortunately, she doesn't. But she does have an eye tattooed on the back of her neck, and she's told me that she's always watching me. So that was fun. To live
Eyes in the back of her
constant fear.
head. I get it. That's
Yeah.
quality comedy right there. That's a solid bit. I have a lot of respect for people who get tattoos that are bits
Yeah.
because one of mine is a bit. So
Oh, good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love when people like, what's the meaning behind that? It's like, I hate that fucking question for tattoos. Like, why does there have to be a meaning?
There's no meaning. It's just me being me, baby.
Yeah. It's a fucking deer skull, for Christ's sake.
Rocco!
What? I'm trying to say I'm built for tough. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh,
with
you
this
are.
thing.
You are.
So.
But so when my mom was giving birth to me, basically my grandma gave her the option, you could give her up or we could keep her. It doesn't really matter. And, this is
Were you
your
talking
life.
like an abortion or?
An adoption.
Oh, okay.
Because it was too late when my mom found out that she was pregnant.
Got it.
So my grandma was like, so basically they set up a family. And the family had met my mom, my grandma, my papa, and they all met and it was great and everything was good. And my mom actually set up for me to be adopted from this family.
Man, they got a lot done while she was giving birth to you. She's in labor.
But,
now that you're in labor, let's have this conversation. Yeah. You get some paperwork done. I mean, you are, for your first child, are you the only child?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
For your first child, like typically the labor lasts like what, 12 hours or something like that for your first child. So they probably got that done during that time.
Well, Well,
I wouldn't be
probably.
surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either. I mean, it was the 90s. Things were crazy.
Your grandmother was very proficient in paperwork.
She absolutely was. She's a banker. So.
Oh, hell yeah. It's the family. You do the family work.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, actually, like, when I was born, I was brought to this other family. And I lived there for 30 days. And apparently they're rich, and they lived on a farm, and they had a bunch of horses and cows and chickens and all that good stuff. So I lived there for 30 days, and then my mom changed her mind. So
Do you ever think about that?
all the time. Seriously.
How differently your life could have been had your mom like not brought you back into poverty?
I know. It's seriously. Like, and I also think, but at the same time, like, I would have voted for Trump. You know, I would have.
You think they were conservative just because they had money?
I think they were conservative because they lived on the farm. I don't know. I mean,
You got me there.
I'm making assumptions.
You got me there. I'm probably. I mean, do you think? I don't know. You seem like a pretty you have a pretty rebellious spirit. You've got a, I think for myself, type personality. So I don't know if you would have necessarily ended up being a person who would vote for Trump.
I hope
but
not.
I think that you would have a very different relationship with those parents because of it.
Yeah, totally.
So you think I wonder if they would have ever. You think they would have told you about your biological mother, or have just gone on letting you think that you're a part of that family?
I think that they would have kept her in the dust for sure because she was. We'll get into it, but she was a crazy teenager. So,
Yeah.
and early 20s. Yeah, so and they knew that. And I think that the reason why they adopted me is to kind of get me out of that. So, I think they would have hid it from me.
Are your grandparents still here with us?
Oh yeah, hell yeah, they're the
I
best.
should assume because you're like your mom had you at 16.
Yeah, so then my grandma had my mom at 20. So we have a young family full of
Wow,
great people.
That's cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So how disappointed are they in you that you haven't had a child at this point? Like, as far as your family is concerned, you're way past your prime.
I really am. I know. I always tell them I broke the chain.
See, that's what I'm saying. You have a very like I'm gonna do me type spirit. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that even if you had ended up with that other family, and say for instance they were predominantly religious or Republican, and now I'm going on a rant of assumptions here, but we'll just say those things are true. I don't know if necessarily you would have ended up that way.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, yeah, I definitely go against the grain. That's for sure. My mom, like, we always had a even when I was little, like a baby. And like my mom would come over to my grandma's house, and because like my grandma was like my main babysitter, and my grandma actually had custody of me. And, like,
okay.
My mom didn't have any custody of me.
I mean, she signed up for that pretty early on, so
Yeah.
she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna help you raise this kid," which is really nice of your grandmother to. Maybe because she could probably relate because she also had a kid at a young age.
Yeah.
So she can kind of like see that like, oh, like I don't want to see my kid go through the same struggles. So I will help her out in ways that my mother didn't do.
Exactly.
So I think that, I don't know. I think my parents were kind of that way where they were trying to parent me in a way or in ways that they never got for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they almost like overcompensated for certain things.
Oh,
So...
yeah.
You know, I think a lot of parents are that way. They just don't want to give their kids the same struggles that they had during their own upbringings.
Yeah.
So, which is nice. Some parents are like that, not all.
Definitely.
I'm painting with a pretty broad brush there, but
Yeah.
So your grandmother pretty much raised you. Now, did they make you aware that was your biological mother, or did you think your grandmother was your mom for a little while?
So I guess it was never really like pointed out to me about my mom, but like she would take me. And like my mom has a sister. She's my Aunt Hope. And so like my Aunt Hope would take me sometimes, but like my mom had apartments that she would like bring me to, and we'd stay together for like 4 days, and then she'd have to go bartend, and so she'd bring me back to my grandparents' house and stuff. So I guess it was never really like pointed out to me, but she always felt like a sister. Because grandma was kind of raising both of us.
Yeah, I mean, she was a kid.
Yeah.
So that's probably why she was never really an authority figure, because she wasn't ever felt like she was old enough to be of authority in that part of your life or whatever. I mean, also too, as a kid, who questions it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've never asked like my mom if she's my mom.
Yeah.
Or like, here's a funny instance of like kids really not following through with questions beyond what they're told. So I always thought it was Jewish until I was like almost 30, because my uncle got married. He got married to a Jewish woman, and we were in the wedding. He handed us all yarmulkes, and I go, "Why do we have to wear these?" And he goes, "Because we're Jewish." I didn't think in my head he meant him and his wife are Jewish. I thought, okay, we're all Jewish. My best friend growing up, I was so excited to get home because his father's a rabbi.
Oh my
So
God.
I was so pumped to get home to tell Alex, like, look, I'm also Jewish.
Yeah.
We had I'm just finding this out. I'm like 13, 14 years old.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
like that's a kind of like an insight of like my level of maturity. Like, I'm still very immature as an individual, but
Me
like
too.
no follow-up questions at all. Like no questioning at all. Like just, oh, we're Jewish.
Yeah.
Why would I ask any questions?
Why? Yeah.
It's the same as finding out you're Lebanese or Italian or whatever. You just like, oh, we're Italians. I'm not Italian, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I never questioned whether or not I was Native American.
Yeah.
So I just assumed like, oh, this is how I'm finding out that we're Jewish too. So what? Yeah, it was kind of funny growing up thinking that you were Jewish. And I was there for like high holidays and shit. Like, no one said a word to me.
Yeah.
No one thought it was weird. My parents are kind of like those people who are like, I don't think they necessarily like paid attention too much. They weren't those types of, like, they didn't even find out I did stand up until like years and years later.
Wow.
Into doing it. And I think I got ousted during the pandemic. Because somebody had posted something online that I was doing stand up, and I think my mom noticed it. She's like, "Oh, I didn't know you did stand up." I was like, "I've been doing stand up for like 4 years now."
Oh my gosh.
So it's not that they weren't loving or they're not. It's not that they're not caring people.
Sure.
It's just they have their own thing going on, so they kind of just get wrapped up in that. And whatever. I'm the same way with them sometimes too. I'm just I try to get tunnel vision of like what's going on in life, and then everything else is just kind of like floats by. I don't really think anything of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, growing up with a 16-year-old mom, like, so you would go and visit her as if like she was just like a friend of the family.
Kind of.
Did you mostly live at your grandparents' house, or did you live at your mom's and then you kind of traveled? Did it feel like you're mostly traveling from your grandmother's to your mom's house, or your mom's house to your grandmother's house?
It felt like my mom worked crazy hours. So like to the point where in kindergarten, I remember she put me in the PM class so that she'd be able to take me to school, because she wouldn't be able to wake up in the morning to take me to school.
Wow. I didn't even know they had that.
Yeah, because like our school district was so big. Like I graduated with like over 500 kids. So we had kids coming in from all over to this elementary school, all over the area. So yeah, she was just a sleepy girl, and especially when she would do drugs. And so like she signed me up for that, and she would always like take me to my grandma's. And so yeah, I would say like 2 out of 7 days of the week I'd stay with my mom, and then the rest I was with my grandma. And sometimes my mom lived with us in the basement as well. And I had to sleep in the same bed as her because like she didn't want to sleep alone.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
Yeah. So I slept in bed with my mom until I was like probably like 8 or 9.
That's cool. So it was
Yeah.
like a slumber party for you guys.
Yeah, and actually, like my grandma, I just saw her this weekend, and she was like, even when you were little, you were always up waiting for your mom to come home from like work just so I could like go down into the basement with her to sleep. And she's like, so you'd be up for, hours until 4 or 5 in the morning, just waiting for her, dozing off here and there. And then when I would finally sleep, I was like out, just like completely dead asleep. So I would sleep really hard when I was little.
Probably because there was such a sense of like comfort and you felt protected in that space.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, like I loved like sleeping in my own bed, and I loved like sometimes, when you're scared when you're little, you'd go into your your parents, your grandparents' bed and like go in between them and sleep.
I fear nothing.
Never once.
I never lived in fear.
One time,
The only thing I'm afraid of is tax time.
the one time I would always sleep with my TV on because like that's what my mom did. So I'd always sleep with my TV on, and one time like the power went out, so the TV went out, and so I woke up. I'm like, I'm awake, and I just started screaming at the top of my lungs, and I just ran into my grandparents' room and just slid in between them. I'm like, the power went out.
Did they live on a farm?
No, they just lived in a condo.
Oh, nice.
Condo in Youngstown. Yeah.
Oh, condo living in Youngstown.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did they have like people come by and shovel their driveway for them?
Papa would do it. He had he always had a plow, so.
Nice.
And my Uncle Tommy, he owns a landscaping company, so he'd come by and plow it for us too.
Very cool.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Man, that'd be so nice not to have to. So there was like a time where I'd have to come, like when I was a little older, and my brother was still living at my parents' house, and like they'd have to go there and shovel their driveway while my brother just sat inside the house. I'm like, this is fucked up.
That's crazy.
There's something wrong with this picture.
Yeah.
But I still did it, so whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, so how, like, so your mom, your grandparents were all living in the same house. Now,
Pretty
did
much.
you know your biological father at all, or?
So he comes in when I'm about 8.
Whoa.
So, yeah. So basically, like, my dad never believed that he was my dad. Apparently, there was a rumor that night when they hooked up in Mill Creek Park in Youngstown.
It's funny that you know this.
Oh, he told me the whole story and showed me the couch that I was, yeah.
Oh, why would they
Disgusting.
keep the couch?
Disgusting. His friend has
How does
the
this
couch.
even? Okay, hold on. Let's roll this back a little bit. How does this scenario even play out?
Okay.
He's like, "Hey, get in the
Sure.
car. We're about to go see something really cool," and
Yeah.
you're thinking you're going to go see some sort of like museum, the
Yep.
Museum of Youngstown, and he takes you to go see the couch.
Yeah, so
Is it in somebody's house or is
somebody's
it
house?
a
Yeah, his
barn?
buddy's house. Buddy's house. Yeah. So
Well, at least it was indoors. That's kind of nice.
indoors, still in the basement that I was conceived in as well.
As one does.
Yeah. So his friend was like playing video games or watching a game, whatever bros do in their 40s that are still single. And we go in and we go downstairs and he's like, "Hey, this is my daughter." And I'm like,
There's people living there?
"I'm his daughter." Yeah, his buddy. And so I'm sitting, next to his buddy. We're watching the game or whatever. And my dad looks over and he goes, "Oh, yeah, that's the couch, by the way. That's the couch that you were like conceived on."
It's got a tarp on it and everything.
It's disgusting. I'm like, "Do you still have the juices? Like, what's going on? Disgusting."
Oh, how would you know that at 8?
Well, so that was later on.
Ah.
Yeah, he told me that later on. The first time I ever met my dad,
That would be a weird conversation at 8 years old now that I think of it. How old were you when you had this conversation with
I
him?
was probably like 13, maybe 14.
What kind of brand of couch was this? Because I'm going to probably invest in this couch because that obviously can survive anything.
I don't know the exact brand, but I do remember it was like leather and like leather colored. Like it wasn't black or anything like that.
Probably
it was
a
like
Davenport.
brown.
Oh, never mind. Go on.
Ooh, you would know.
It's the only brand of couch I know. My grandmother, growing up, she would only speak in like, everything was a brand. So like you didn't use a tissue, you used a Kleenex. You didn't use a cotton swab, you used a Q-tip. You sat on a Davenport or you sat in a lazy boy, or you
Wow.
grabbed things out of a refrigerator. Everything was brands.
Oh my gosh.
She spoke in brands only.
I love this lady.
She was cool. She was from Brooklyn. She was
Nice.
from Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, and so she had that really cute little like Brooklyn accent. She was born in Lebanon, so technically my mom's like first generation American, but it never really felt that way because she pretty much just grew up in Brooklyn, and so she had that cute little Brooklyn accent, like "Hi Jimmy, how's it going?" So that's kind of the like. I guess that's kind of my head why it kind of clicked that we might have been Jewish because the neighborhood she grew up in was fairly Jewish and like I don't know, whatever. But yeah, it was like when I found out, I was like, well, now I got to change everything about myself.
I've been holding this back from you, but I found out this year that I'm Jewish.
Wow, Ashkenazi or
14%.
whatever.
No, it's on Ancestry. It's the European peoples, Jewish European.
So like Poland area.
What am I saying? Yeah, like Hungarian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I know I'm Hungarian, so I got some.
Very cool.
14%.
Well, good for you then.
I celebrated Hanukkah this year.
I was like, if I'm not Jewish, how do you explain all these allergies I have?
How can you explain all the pennies that I've been hoarding?
Why am I in the basement schwitzing like a schlitzel? Can you explain that?
Why do I like gefilte fish? Why? Why?
Why do I use my hands to talk?
I'm so mad.
I wish we were Jewish. And I slam the door.
You start wearing a yarmulke all the time.
I'm going to throw my Torah out. Poor little bastard. So yeah, his grandmother's house. You got to see the couch.
I did, yeah.
What was that moment like for you? Like that is.
Oh, it was fucked up. It was really fucked up.
What was he thinking?
Well, he's a terrible person.
I mean,
He's
this is just
awful.
a testimony how big. I mean, this might sound self-aware to you, but I think all men are idiots, and that's me as a man saying that all men are dumbasses and we suck. And you might think to yourself, that's very,
Amen.
very self-aware of you, Jeremy, to say that about yourself, that all men are dumb. No, I was told, and I was told by a woman that I was dumb. So I've accepted it.
Sure.
Just like, how would I be, being as dumb as I am as a male, how would I come to that conclusion other than being told by a woman?
Right. I mean,
So-
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, what a fucking moron. Why would you do that to your daughter?
Yeah.
What's going through? Oh, you know what? You know what would be time well spent with my daughter who I haven't seen pretty much her whole life? She'd love to see the couch where I banged her mom on.
Yep. Oh my gosh.
Her
and
and
that's what I want.
whoever else was involved. So yeah, get into that part. How did he assume that like why and also why would he tell you this? It's so fucking wild.
Yeah. So when I was born, my mom was at a local pizza shop, right?
Yeah.
And it's called Wetwood
Yeah.
Pizza. Great pizza shop. She was picking up some pizza for my grandma and my papa.
The one that they assumed that the Clintons were doing their sex dungeon out of.
Really?
No.
Oh, I was like, wow, you're telling me something. Sheesh. About
No,
my
that'd
own.
Man,
my
what,
house.
what a small world that would be.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
That would be wild.
Yeah. But so she had me in her arm, probably holding me the wrong way with my head all dangling. And she went up to my dad's mom, apparently my grandma, who's to say, and she said, hey, would you like to meet your granddaughter? And my grandma said, get that fucking thing away from me. Yeah.
Why are they telling you these stories?
I know, it's crazy. And so anyways, fast forward. So
I like how earlier, we were talking and I was telling you that I'm a classic oversharer. These people they're my new heroes.
oh, they're crazy.
I'm now thinking to myself, I'm not that bad.
No, you wouldn't tell
I
your own
know
child
boundaries.
this. Yeah.
Some of the time I know boundaries.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to tell my mom about my sex life. Like, I can't think of anything more horrific than having that conversation.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my grandma thinks I'm a virgin.
Yeah, I'm married, and I really hope that all of my family still thinks I'm a virgin. I
Yeah.
don't want to have that conversation with them.
No.
One time, my dad and I went to Vegas, and on the flight there, I was like, "Look, man, I understand. Like, you're going to hang out with you and your buddies. I'm here as like a way to like make sure you don't spend all of your life savings. Like, that's pretty much why my mom wanted to go. She's like, just go make sure he doesn't spend all of his money.
Sure.
So, which is also her money. So
Oh,
we
those
go.
classic joint bank accounts.
He's there with all of his childhood buddies, who are like kind of like my uncles, at this point. And I'm like, look, I get it. You're there with your friends, your brother. You guys have a history together.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, but you like, if you want to go to a strip club, I don't want to know about it. I don't want to hear about it. I'm not going with you. If you want to do some sort of weird father-son bonding shit, we'll fucking smoke a joint or something.
Sure.
We are not going to a strip club.
No.
At all. Like, believe me, and this was the heydays of me going to strip clubs. I was no stranger to a strip club, but I'm not going with my dad. Fuck that. That nothing seems. There's very few things that make me feel uncomfortable. That is definitely at the top of the list.
Yeah. I mean, I think anyone, yeah.
There needs to be boundaries, right?
Absolutely.
I'm not like it. Sometimes I feel like that we have to remind my wife's mom about that. It's like, you don't need to tell us everything.
Right.
We don't need to know.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, we know things are good now. So just like let bygones be bygones here. But they almost feel like they have to share. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that your parents had the desire to like share these like weird stories with you?
I don't know. I think it was like my cousins telling me, my mom telling me, my dad. Like, even, like, my grandparents have shared some stories with me about me being little and, like, how different family members reacted to me being born because, like, my mom was so young. And
is there an age difference between your mom and your dad?
Yeah, so when he banged her, he was 18. When I was born, he was 19. So if there's a Twitter feed, there would be one about my dad for sure.
He'd be canceled.
Oh, he would definitely be canceled. Yeah.
It's so funny how often that happened during those times, though. It's like fucking crazy.
Oh, crazy. Yeah.
Well, even with like our celebrities at the time, like Jimmy Page, fucking Elvis. People applaud Elvis like he's some sort of like god amongst men, and like he was dating his like cousin, who was like 14 years old. It's disgusting.
And he also stole everything from black people.
Oh,
Literally,
yeah, for
his
sure.
whole persona.
Well, no one is a bigger offender of that than Jerry Lee Lewis. And with the whole banging of she was like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like he figured out what Elvis was doing, and it was like, I'm going to do something completely worse.
Let me just level up. Let me just level up real quick.
I see what's going on here.
And I could do way better.
I'll see your two and raise another.
Yeah, so I don't know why they told me all this stuff, but I'm kind of glad because, I mean, I have all these stories,
That's true.
And it really, I like telling them.
Yeah, you would tell me these stories when we'd hang out, and it was just blowing my mind. And I had so many questions all the time, just like kind of like I am now. It was just like, why do you think they would do that?
Yeah, good question.
Though I will say my parents will, and every time they do this, it makes me so uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I blush. I'm like cringing. I want to crawl the fuck out of my own skin every time they try to tell me I'm their love child, which is kind of disrespectful to my siblings because that means that they had them just to have them. Just to make sure I had somebody to talk to.
Are you the oldest?
I'm the oldest of three.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So every time they say that, they insinuate that, like, yeah, when we had the other two, it was strictly business. But for you, we were enjoying ourselves.
Did they sleep in the same bed?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that my parents are every bit as much in love as they were. I don't know if it's how funny is this to say? I don't know if it's sincere or not, but they seem genuinely happy. So who am I to like really question it? They have their own baggage and quirks and whatnot. We're all human beings, but like, yeah, I think that they're happy, and they sleep in the same bed, and they seem to get along. Mm-hmm. They didn't really. They would have their disagreements or their arguments, but they kind of kept it to themselves for the most part.
That's nice.
But, My parents are weird, but for the most part, I had a pretty healthy upbringing. I had a pretty fun childhood to a point where there's like some of it. Somebody was talking about the other day about like the age of consciousness, and it's like I don't even remember. Like I think of my childhood so little because I think to me it was just kind of like normal and kind of for the most part boring. Which is funny that I've now started a podcast trying to explore myself as a child, my childhood or whatever. And I think that's because I did spend I do spend a lot, and I don't spend much time thinking about it really. Especially, I would say my first memories would have to be in like the first or second. I remember being pulled out of school, but everything before that seems to be pretty hazy or nothing at all.
Gotcha. Yeah, mine are all scattered all over the place. I've been like before, like today, I was trying to put them all in order in my head, but it's tough. And people are like, "Well, how old were you?" I'm like, I honestly don't know. I was like 7 most of my life until like I was 20.
It feels that way, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, I'm leaving the house. I'm 18."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It's crazy how quickly it
crazy.
moves. And it probably for them, it's got to be weird having because I don't have kids.
Yeah, I'll never have kids.
And neither will us. But like,
Yeah.
but like, I can't imagine having that constant like reminder of mortality around all the time.
Yep.
Like, oh, like they're getting bigger, so my time's coming to a close.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And like my kids are also decaying, technically.
Yeah.
As they get older, they die.
Sure.
So
the way I drive, I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. So, like, how did your parents meet?
So they went to high school together, and my dad was a senior. My mom was a freshman, and she thought he was the hottest.
That's not that crazy because before in my head, I'm like, oh, he's probably in his freshman year of college, and she's in high school, and he's home from.
Oh, okay.
He's home from college.
Yeah.
Type deal.
Okay.
But that is a scenario I had already made up, and that's why I asked the question. I'm like, there's no way this is right.
Yeah.
So.
No, she like always thought he was handsome. She always had a crush on him. And like, I guess the way that the party went from all of the stories I've heard is that there was a party in Mill Creek Park and everybody was like doing drugs, hanging out, drinking, whatever. And then it was like busted by the cops. And so there were 4 or 5 different, and Mill Creek Park is like, it's like almost like a national park, but it's small. Like it's like you just like hike through it and drive through it, and it's beautiful. But so the cops came, so everybody went different ways. There were a couple different designated drivers or designated drunk drivers, whatever.
Wow.
And so my dad got into a van, and my mom just like scurried her way into the van, and like they went off into his friend's house, and that's where it happened.
They seduced each other.
Yeah, and apparently, like my dad told me that she was the last one awake.
Whoa, that is harsh.
Yeah,
but very cool. No, I'm just kidding.
I like this guy. I'm kind of liking this guy.
Debonair, this guy. He's like James Bond of hillbillies.
And I don't even think he's handsome. I don't think it. Even in high school, he had like crazy hair, and he never showered, and he was just one of those like hippie punk weirdos.
Ugh.
Yeah, one of the worst kind of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah,
that's not kind of what my dad was. He was like this hippie guy who followed the Grateful Dead around for 2 years of his life, and he would tell me these things like I think it was cool, and I'm like, that sounds awful.
Yeah, what?
Same band for 2 years?
How many tabs of acid has this guy done?
Oh, God only knows. But yeah, it's like I can't listen to the same CD more than twice.
No.
Why would you listen to the same band for 2 years?
Yeah, that's crazy. And isn't like John Mayer with them now or something?
But Grateful Dead?
Maybe.
Probably. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't keep tabs on either one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a little freak.
Yeah. So your dad said she was the last one awake.
Yep, he sure did.
Well, which is like, yeah, she was like the only option.
And the reason why he didn't think that he was my dad was because apparently that night she had hooked up with a couple other people. So he just was like, well, what about those other guys that you hooked up with? Like, they could potentially be this child's father as well. And
How would he know? How would he have known that?
it was a rumor, high school rumor.
Did she actually hook up with other people that night, or is that just something people were spreading around about your mom to be mean?
Well, I can't really trust either one of them. So I'm just, picking what I can get.
Yeah,
These
you're just
fuckers.
taking. Yeah, you're just giving what you got. And
Yep.
then you're gonna have to roll with that.
Yep.
And I
yeah.
guess at the end of the day, what does it really matter? So I'm assuming he had your mom do like a DNA test.
Yeah, so my mom finally, like when I was 8, she wanted, what's that called? The money.
Child care,
Child support.
child support.
Yes. So she wanted child support, so she basically sent him a court order to like get this paternity test, and then turns out he was my dad.
Then he also had to do back pay for all that time he wasn't paying child support.
Oh, he sure did. Oh,
Brutal.
she was getting so much oxy, it was incredible.
Yeah, that sucks because, like, I don't know. Sometimes it's like it's like a necessary evil. You hope that the person's using that child support to support their child, thus the name. But sometimes it doesn't play out that way.
Nope, I never saw a lick of it.
It sucks.
When we lived in this apartment for a long time. And when I say long time, I mean like a year and a half. Because she was like in and out of places so often. But my breakfast would be one of those like $1 breakfast trays that you'd get at like Dollar General. She would like just stock up on those. And like it would just heat up like sausage links and eggs and toast or whatever.
Yeah. But as a kid, you don't realize that, like, oh, you think that's cool and fun.
Absolutely.
You don't really think about like the nutritional value of what you're receiving.
Yep. Nope.
It's not really your job.
Yep.
So I see what you're saying there. Like at the time it was probably pretty cool, but now that you're older in hindsight, you're like, that's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, like what were you using all of that money for? We can only assume drugs.
Sure.
So
what is your relationship like with your mom?
now, oh, I haven't talked to her in I saw her in person just a couple years ago, and it was weird. She started crying. But she comes and visits.
Sorry for laughing.
No, it's okay. What are you crying for, you fucking baby?
Right.
It's like, what could you possibly be upset about right now?
Yeah, if anybody should be crying, it should be you, right?
Exactly.
She's just trying to get to it first.
Yeah. Everything needs to be about Holly.
Yeah.
But it was weird, and I didn't really talk to her. It was at a graduation party, and she came into town for some godforsaken reason, and she had my half brother with her. So him and I don't have a connection with him, so it was just weird all around. But she messages me once every couple months, and I just never respond. I don't go out of my way to talk to her for the past 5 years.
You don't know or anything, so
no,
that's really kind of up to the both of you, really.
Yeah.
How much effort she wants to put in and how much you're willing to give her. I mean, in reality, you don't owe either your parents shit.
Amen.
So, was your dad just to give a context? Was your dad a blue collar, white collar, or you just not see collar?
He
See what I did?
Nice one.
Thank you.
He worked for Verizon for a while, and then I don't really know what he did after that because I cut off communication after a while.
I'm in my head. I'm like, well, that's crazy for a dad to do that job, but then now I'm realizing, well, he was pretty young.
He was young. Yeah, he was in his 20s working for Verizon. I got my first phone off of him. It was a Juke. I don't know if you remember the Juke,
oh, yeah.
but yeah, that was pretty sick. I was the coolest kid.
I remember the Sidekick too. That was the one I had.
Okay, where it like slid up.
Yeah, I had the Sidekick for a little while, and then as soon as that iPhone came out, I was like, goodbye. And
Let me get one of those.
I got the iPhone, and I've had an iPhone ever since, like an idiot.
I
But
know.
those first iPhones were so bad too.
Yep.
But you were cool for like a month, and then when the battery stopped charging and you weren't getting any cell phone service, it was like, oh, this is like actually hindering me from actually like at the time getting laid.
Yep. That's exactly it.
But I kept the phone. Who knows?
Why?
I don't know. I think at the time I'm like, well, it is kind of cool though.
Yeah.
No one has an iPhone.
You can like play music off of it, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it holds 8 songs.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Did you have like
and
the
10
little
photos.
Did you have like the little iPods, like the different generations? I've been talking about this often.
Oh,
with people.
I did have a few different ones. I think I stopped pretty early on though with that. That was kind of a part of the problem when it came to the iPod, because as soon as that iPhone came out, it was like, what's the point?
Right. Absolutely.
And then like come like iPhone 4, it was like really no reason to have an iPod.
That's true.
Because that was like right around the same time Spotify was coming out.
Love Spotify.
And a bunch of different, programs in order to just load songs onto the phone itself. So it's like there's little reason to have it.
Yeah.
YouTube.
Oh, loved YouTube. Loved Fred.
Yeah, the apps were like insane at that point. So it was like, there's plenty of ways to keep yourself entertained on that phone without like having to really load much on it.
Yeah, that's so true.
So and then like when they started bringing out video, you're like, holy shit!
Oh my god,
It was I guess it was like the 1920s version of when they brought out the talkies.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, little talkies on your phone there. See, so
you'll see.
yes, sir. So what is your relationship with your dad like now?
I haven't talked to him since my freshman year of college. I blocked him on everything. I changed my number. I have not given him my number. Nothing. He is one of those white guys that thinks that they're discriminated against more than other people. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah.
And like I'd post things on Facebook like, look at this shooting. Isn't that awful? Let's change America. And he's like, well, what about the men in blue?
He's like, yeah, let's
murdered?
make it, let's not change it. Let's make it great again.
Exactly. Oh, he voted for Trump for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work the voting polls. Well, I used to in Youngstown. I haven't up here yet, but I love doing it. And
So you did a lot of voting for dead people?
Yes, I sure did. Don't tell them. But I actually worked at the polling place that he went to. And so I like warned everybody, all the old people that were working with me, like, hey, like if my dad comes in, I'm going to scoot and I'm going to get out of here. And they're like, no problem. And so he came in and I just like ran out. Like just seeing him like disgusted me. And like I just ran out. And then
You think of the couch when you see him.
Yeah, exactly. God.
Why not burn it?
Please, something. And just don't tell me.
Yeah, that or like burn the couch, for God's sakes.
I know.
It seems like that was a thing to do on the couch.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't uncommon for that type of activity to take place on that particular couch.
No. And you kept it for 13 years, 14 years. Like, what are you doing?
It's gross.
Anyways, so I ran
It's like
out.
people have zero respect for couches.
Respect more couches.
Yeah. He's a white man who thinks he deserves more.
Yep.
So he's white. That's just white in general, I think.
Totally. 100%. Yeah, it's
You guys are
awful.
the worst. Just to also, I'm sure I've said it by now, but like I'm half Native American, half Arab. I know I look like a white guy. I know what I look like. But, as it turns out, I'm not necessarily white. I'm just incredibly pale. My father's Native American. My mother's Arab. So here I am living secretly amongst the whites, blending in, if you will.
Isn't that so
Can you imagine
nice?
how horrific some white supremacists might be by like, you asking me to join them, be like, yeah, sure, but then they do like a family background on me, and they're like, "This guy is zero white."
Yep. Oh yeah. My papa's a Jehovah's Witness, and actually, a reoccurring nightmare was that the KKK came to my house to like kill my grandpa.
Wow.
Yeah.
They have a thing against Jehovah's Witnesses?
They have a thing against other religions except Christianity.
Got it. Okay. How was it growing up in a Jehovah's Witness home?
My grandma's a Catholic. My papa's a Jehovah's Witness. They're on their second marriage together. 26 years, I think. 27 years. Something like that. So they never converted or forced anything on me. So it was nice. I've always been
So you're
a
culturally
non-believer.
You're culturally a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. But actually, nothing.
Did he go those are the guys that go door to door, right? Or am
They do. Yeah, they do.
Does he still do that? Or
No.
is he involved with the church at all?
So he was actually excommunicated for a while because...
hell yeah. That's where you get your rebel spirit from.
Yeah.
From your grandparents.
Oh, yeah. Papa was a crazy one. But, he was excommunicated for a while, especially because he married my grandma. That was a big issue because she wasn't Jehovah. And so she wasn't physically Jehovah, So, But he does, like, every Wednesday, the Jehovah's Witnesses come over and they do, like, read and talk. And I've gotten into a couple arguments with them while living there. And, yeah.
So he's not completely disconnected. He just kind of...
He's like really dyslexic and socially awkward. So going
I like
to
the guy already.
Oh, he's amazing. He's the best guy ever. But going to church is a little overwhelming for him. So
Sure.
he has them come to him.
I understand that.
Yeah.
That's how I was going to church. And it's like, it's so stressful having to grow up in a religious, I would say I grew up more in a religious community more than I grew up in a religious household. 'Cause my parents were pretty loosey-goosey about the whole religion thing when I was growing up. But yeah, it was like weird and then like having to feel like you're failing at following somebody's guidelines or rules or whatever.
Yep.
It was very stressful. It was very, very stressful time for me.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because I didn't, it was like, I wanted to, I don't know how to put it. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to do good, but it was just constantly feeling like you're failing and having to feel ashamed for who you are.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
All the time. And it's just it was incredibly stressful for me. And then that's kind of like, during like junior high or high school when hormones are starting to kick in and you're feeling guilty for those hormones. Yeah. And like, so I think that was kind of like the beginning of the end for me.
Totally.
Like I was like, I'm not giving up this. It's too good. So we're going to have to come up with some sort of compromise or I'm out.
Yeah, sorry, God.
Yeah. And it took about probably 5 more years from there. And then I was kind of a late bloomer too. So I still consider myself like a late bloomer in a lot of things. I'm like, I don't know, I'm dumb. So I'm like, I'm kind of like, I always feel like I'm kind of working from behind all the time. But I don't give a shit. I mean, who is working not from behind?
The 1%.
I'm sure there's some, the 1%. And they had their dads or their siblings or whatever. They had somebody rich in their life making sure that they didn't have to feel that way.
Exactly.
So lucky them.
Yep.
Not that I say I didn't grow up poor by any means. I found out later in life that my parents actually had money. They just convinced me that we were poor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We can't get that. You're not allowed to get that.
Yeah. And not questioning it. Like, oh, we're poor. That's what, like,
yeah.
It was like one time, like, there was like a string of like, oh, we can't get this because we don't have the money for it. We can't do this because we don't have the money for it. And then like Friday night rolls around and TGI Friday is on and what was his name? Sean in Boy Meets World. That's like how their big reveals that he's poor. It's like, oh, Sean can't do this thing because his parents can't afford it. Yeah. And it was like a big deal. I was like, oh, that's why we're poor.
Yeah. Yeah. I love when they say we have McDonald's at home. We have KFC at home. It's like, oh my gosh, it's $2.
Right.
Come on.
Well, I don't know. To my head, that might as well have been like $100. I don't know what.
Yeah.
I have zero concept of money.
Yeah.
So, $2 or $5 might as well be $100 then for me.
Totally.
So, yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
understand it at all. So I'm like, okay, I guess we're poor.
Yeah, I was always like a polite kid that didn't really question things. Like I was always kind of quiet and like just like, okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
and it wasn't. I think it's when I got older is really when like I started like, oh, this is all kind of bullshit. So
Yeah.
now I question everything.
Yeah.
Everything is questioned, regardless if I even believe it or not. Sometimes I question my own beliefs, like, or sometimes I'll say things that I don't even believe because I love watching somebody get upset over it.
Sometimes things come out of my mouth and I'm like, do I actually believe that? I don't know if I've never actually thought
No,
about
I
this.
just really like winning arguments,
Yeah.
especially with family.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, one time it worked out in my dad's favor that I thought we were poor because he took me car shopping with him, and he really wanted to get this. I think it was like an '89 Dodge Caravan, and it was a white. It was like pretty much fully loaded, and like at the time my dad traveled a lot for work and he used his car to travel, so that's probably why he wanted all these like extra features in it. And so the guy, he writes it down on a piece of paper with the car cost, slides it over to us, and my dad shows me the number and I start bawling my eyes out because in my head I'm like, holy that's going to make us so poor.
Yeah.
This is going to be a financial situation that ruins us. So I'm
Yeah.
bawling. I'm like, Dad, don't buy this car.
Yeah.
We're too poor.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, all right, I'll knock off like $3,000 off the car.
Oh my gosh, that's nice. Ooh.
So
I
it
bring
worked
baby
out.
Gheramy everywhere.
Yeah. I saved that man quite a bit of money by thinking. Yeah, and they just never filled me in. They're like, no, he made pretty good money. It's just they were so cheap. But they also came from a poor background. So I think I think it was more fear-based than anything. They didn't want to spend money because they were afraid that one day shit was going to really hit the fan. And when it does, they need to be financially stable enough to feed their kids,
Yeah.
So I think it was more of that. And like the reason why they were so kind of like loosey-goosey with the religion thing at first, because for them it was more of a way to stay off drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
So
Turn to God.
turn to God. That's pretty much what they did.
Yep.
But like they weren't very like, I don't know. I was still able to kind of just do what I wanted to do. They never really forced upon anything. Like they were kind of cool about it. Like I'd
That's
bring
good.
home like CDs from the library that was like the Butthole Surfers or whatever.
Yeah.
And they would like, or a Fugazi. Like I don't know who was in charge of the Parma Heights library, their CD selection, but you have had a huge influence on my musical tastes and pretty much who I am as an individual. So thank you. Whoever you are, I don't know who you are, but you're the only person I had because I was homeschooled and a weird kid and I had the library. That's who I am. That was my only friend at the time. So we
Aw.
moved neighborhoods. But yeah, so there was one other question I had and now I'm spacing on it. So yeah, how did your mom's substance abuse change your relationship? Obviously, like when did you were aware of the fact that your mom had substance abuse issues?
I'd say I always thought that she was a little different than other parents. With the sleeping, like she would sleep during the day even when she didn't work. I'd wake her up and I'd be like, "Hey, Mom, like I'm gonna like." I remember one morning it was before kindergarten and I wanted to eat so bad, but like Grandma and Papa weren't home. It was just me and my mom, and she was passed out. And so I like was so scared to wake her up because I didn't want to upset her. And so, as kids do, we're all so scared of doing anything to upset our parents. So I like went up and like just tapped her. I was like, Mom, can I have ice cream for breakfast? And she was like, yeah. And then she went back to sleep, and I was like, all right, cool. So I like got the ice cream, I got my spoon, and I sat there and I watched cartoons. And she woke up and she was like, what are you eating? And I'm like, ice cream. You told me it was okay. And she was like, I'm just proud of you for eating something. And I think that's when I knew, like, okay, my mom, there's something going on. But I never knew that it was like drugs,
It's funny that you had like a particular moment.
Yeah.
They're all kind of connected for you. I guess there is, I guess we all have those like moments in our life where like, oh, this is what this is. You know what I mean?
And
Yeah, you didn't really know it was drugs, but you knew that there was something quite not right there.
Yep.
Now,
And
how has that informed, now that you're an adult, how has that informed your relationship with substances?
well, like I'll never do a downer. That's for sure. I'll never do a blue or an oxy or anything like that. I definitely steer clear. And like stuff has been offered to me as it's been offered to all of us. But I have always turned it down. I just would never touch the stuff just because if my mom was that bad, then who could I even be? You know. So.
Well, cool. There is a crazy story with you and your mom that you told me. And if you want to hear that story, you can switch now over to the Patreon where we're going to continue this conversation. I will make sure to include whatever the Patreon is in the future. I'll probably just interject it somewhere in there. So there's this insane story with you and your mom that you told me about when you were younger. Yeah. And there was a little a snafu, if you will, that happened. And you had to you had to grow up very quickly in that moment.
Definitely.
And it's still, to me, like one of the crazier stories that I've heard from a friend who, with their parents.
Wow.
I've heard some pretty, I've heard some pretty wild stories.
Yeah.
And you're going to see a lot of those people on this podcast. But this is definitely one I wanted to get. So if you want to hear it, please go over to the Patreon, and we'll take a quick break so I can make sure everything's still working. So
sure.
Thank you so much for doing this episode.
Of course.
Please join us on the Patreon for more with Kayla here, and stay weird out there. I don't know. I haven't figured that part out yet. We'll get it together. Another peek behind the curtain is this is the first episode I've recorded. So there's a lot of things that I probably should have put a little bit more thought into what I was doing. But I've done so many podcasts at this point that I'm just like, fuck it. I'm just hit record and see what happens. Sure. Who gives a shit?
Absolutely.
If we get nothing, then what do
I'll come over next week.
Yeah. What do I care?
Yeah.
Those stories aren't changing anytime soon.
Absolutely not.
Neither is mine. So I'm still going to be every bit as weird next week as I am right now. So
absolutely.
Unless something really drastic happens, but
I hope not.
I hope not. Yeah. I mean, I'm not proud of everything I am, but there's times, there's moments, they're brief and fleeting, but there's moments where I'm like proud of myself or who I am. But then that's quick. That goes away quickly.
Yeah, I really have no opinion on myself.
And then like I'll get like weirded out that I thought I was proud of that. Yeah. I'm like, who the fuck are you to be proud of yourself?
Who the fuck are you? Me?
Yeah. Who the fuck are you to think that was a cool moment? You think you're so cool with your funny quips. Anyways, join us on Patreon to hear the crazy story that Kayla has for us. Good night and God bless.
And Ja Rule.
And hail Satan.